Emma Rose Carter's hands shook as she slid her last $1.23 across the counter toward the scarred biker everyone else was avoiding.
"Mister, this is all I have,"
she whispered.
"but you need coffee more than I do."
The man's leather cut was soaked through, his lips blue from cold, and when he looked down at her money, then up at her face, something cracked behind his eyes.
"Kid, I can't."
"Please," she interrupted, and her voice held something that made the entire diner go silent.
"My mama taught me that when you see someone freezing, you share your warmth, even if it's all you got."
What happened next would ignite a battle that would shake their entire town to its foundation. If you want to witness how one 9-year-old's impossible courage changed everything, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay with me until the very end, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Jake Morrison's fingers wouldn't grip the coffee cup properly. That was the hypothermia talking. The same hypothermia that had nearly killed him 40 miles back when his Harley's engine had seized in the middle of the worst February blizzard Montana had seen in a decade. "Keep the change," he tried to say to the waitress, but his wallet was empty. Completely empty. Somewhere between the breakdown and stumbling into this truck stop, he'd lost everything that mattered. Credit cards, cash, even the photo of his daughter he'd been carrying for 25 years. The waitress, her name tag read Crystal, was already backing away from him. They always did. The death's head patch on his back, the ink crawling up his neck, the road dust and blood, his own from where he'd split his knuckles trying to fix the bike in sub-zero temperatures. All of it screamed danger to people like her. "I said I'll pay," Jake repeated, but the words came out slurred. "Just give me a minute to." "You need to leave," Crystal said, her hand moving toward the phone mounted behind the counter. That's when the small voice cut through everything.
"I'll pay for him."
Jake turned, slow because his body wasn't responding right, and saw her. 9 years old, maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, wearing a pink coat that was 2 sizes too small, and had duct tape holding one of the sleeves together. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had probably been neat this morning but was now falling apart. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They were old eyes, ancient eyes, the kind of eyes that had seen too much loss for someone who should still believe in fairy tales.
"Honey, you don't have to," Crystal started.
"I want to," the girl said firmly. She pulled out a small zippered pouch from her backpack and carefully counted out $1.23 in nickels, dimes, and pennies. Her hands were steady, even though Jake could see her bottom lip trembling.
"This is all I have, but he needs it more than I do."
Jake stared at the money on the counter, at this child, this stranger, offering him everything she possessed. "Kid," he managed, his voice rough from the cold and something else he couldn't name. "I can't take your money."
"You're freezing," she said simply. "I can see it. Your lips are blue and your hands are shaking, and you look like my daddy did that time our heat went out in winter."
She pushed the money closer to Crystal.
"Please give him coffee, the biggest cup you have, and maybe some soup if there's enough."
Crystal looked at the money, then at Jake, then back at the girl. Something shifted in her expression.
"That's $1.23,
Crystal said quietly.
"Coffee's $2.50. Soup's another $4. "I know," the girl said, "but it's all I have. Can you just give him the coffee at least? Please?"
Jake's throat closed up. When was the last time someone had shown him kindness like this? When was the last time anyone had looked at him and seen a human being instead of a threat?
"Your coffee's on the house,"
Crystal said suddenly, her voice tight.
"And the soup. Sit down before you fall down.
Jake wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but his legs were already buckling. He made it to the nearest booth just as everything started to gray out around the edges. When his vision cleared, the little girl was sitting across from him. She'd slid into the booth like she belonged there, like sitting with dangerous strangers was something she did every Tuesday morning. "You shouldn't sit with me," Jake said. "People will talk."
People always talk, she replied. And there was that ancient wisdom again. My foster mother says I should care what people think. But I figure if they're thinking mean things about someone just because of how they look, then their opinions don't matter much anyway.
Foster mother. That explains some of the old eyes. Crystal brought the coffee and soup without comment. Her expression had changed from fear to something that looked almost like respect. Jake wrapped his damaged hands around the mug and felt the warmth start to seep back into his bones. "What's your name?" he asked.
Emma Rose Carter, she said. What's yours?
Jake Morrison, but people call me Chains.
That's a weird nickname.
Despite everything, Jake almost smiled. Yeah, it is.
Why do they call you that?
Long story. Emma nodded like that made perfect sense.
Are you part of a motorcycle club? I saw the jacket. My daddy used to work on motorcycles before he died. He said the people who ride them are like a family.
The casual mention of her dead father hit Jake harder than he expected. "I'm sorry about your dad," he said.
Me too.
Emma's voice didn't waver, but her fingers started shredding a napkin into smaller and smaller pieces.
It was a car crash.
8 months ago. A drunk driver crossed the center line on Highway 12 and hit them head-on. My mama died too. Instantly, the police said. They said they didn't feel any pain.
Emma, I know people say that to make you feel better,
she continued, still shredding the napkin.
But I was there, in the back seat. I heard everything. So I know they're lying when they say it was instant and painless. But I let them believe I believe it because it makes them feel better about not being able to do anything.
Jake set down his coffee cup carefully because his hands had started shaking again, and it had nothing to do with the cold.
You were in the car? Broken arm, concussion, some cuts.
Emma finally looked up from the napkin pieces.
I spent 3 days in the hospital. When I woke up, they told me my parents were dead, and I was going to something called emergency foster care until they could find family. Except there isn't any family.
Master was an only child, and Daddy's brother died in Afghanistan. So it's just me and Tyler.
Tyler?
My little brother. He's 6. He was at a sleepover when the accident happened. They put him in a different foster home because the Hendersons said they could only take one of us.
They keep promising they'll get Tyler moved to their house, but it's been 8 months and they haven't done it yet.
Emma's voice was still steady, still matter-of-fact, but Jake could hear the ocean of grief underneath it. The careful control of a child who'd learned that falling apart accomplished nothing.
Where's Tyler now? Jake asked. A home in Billings. That's 60 miles from here. I only get to see him once a month when Mrs. Henderson drives me there for supervised visits. Tyler cries every time I have to leave. He's only 6. He doesn't understand why we can't live together.
Jake felt something twist in his chest. He thought about his own daughter, Sarah, who he hadn't seen in 5 years, who'd stopped returning his calls after the divorce, after she'd decided her biker father was too embarrassing to acknowledge. He'd been on his way to Seattle to try one more time to fix that relationship when his bike had broken down in the middle of nowhere, Montana. And now, here was Emma Rose Carter, 9 years old and separated from her brother, offering her last dollar to a stranger because he looked cold. The Hendersons, Jake said carefully. They treat you okay? Emma's fingers stilled on the napkin pieces. It was a tiny tell, but Jake had spent 25 years reading people, figuring out who was lying and who was telling truths they wished they didn't have to tell.
They're fine,
Emma said.
Emma. They give me a place to sleep and food to eat. That's all foster parents have to do, right? The social worker says I should be grateful because there aren't enough homes for all the kids who need them.
That wasn't an answer. That was a carefully constructed non-answer that told Jake everything he needed to know. How long since you ate? He asked, quietly. Emma's shoulders tensed.
I had dinner last night.
What did you have?
Peanut butter sandwich.
And before that?
School lunch yesterday.
And before that? Emma's jaw tightened with that fierce pride Jake recognized from his own childhood, from the years when admitting how bad things were felt like failure.
Mrs. Henderson says I need to learn to budget better, Emma said. She gives me $5 a week for lunch money, and if I spend it all at the beginning of the week, that's my problem. She says it'll teach me responsibility.
$5 a week for lunch. Jake did the math. School lunch cost at least $3. That meant Emma could afford lunch maybe twice a week if she was careful. And she'd just given him her last $1.23. Crystal, Jake called out, his voice harder than he intended. He softened it deliberately. Can you bring some pancakes, and eggs, and bacon, and orange juice?
I'm not hungry,
Emma said quickly. You're lying. Jake's voice was gentle but firm. And I appreciate what you tried to do for me with your money. I appreciate it more than you know. But I'm buying you breakfast, and you're going to eat it, because I can't fix my bike or find my wallet or solve any of my actual problems right now. But I can make sure a kid who gave me everything she had gets a hot meal. Okay? Emma stared at him for a long moment. Then, so quietly, he almost missed it.
Okay.
The food came faster than Jake expected. Crystal brought enough pancakes to feed 3 people, plus eggs and bacon and toast and a glass of orange juice so big it required 2 hands to lift. On the house, Crystal said again, and this time she was looking at Emma, not Jake.
All of it.
Emma's eyes went wide.
But I can't. You can, Crystal interrupted. And you will.
I've been watching you sit in this diner every Tuesday morning for the past month, waiting for your school bus with nothing but water. I should have done something about it before now. So eat, please. Emma picked up her fork with hands that trembled slightly. She took one bite of pancake, then another. Then suddenly she was eating with the focused intensity of someone who didn't know when the next meal was coming. Jake sipped his coffee and watched her. He thought about his own daughter, about all the meals they should have shared and didn't, about all the ways he'd failed as a father, about how he was on his way to try to fix something that might be too broken to repair. And he thought about this little girl, this stranger who'd looked at a dangerous biker and seen someone who needed help. You said your daddy worked on motorcycles, Jake said. Did he teach you anything about them? Emma nodded, her mouth full of eggs. She swallowed. He taught me how to change oil and check tire pressure and clean spark plugs. He said knowing how machines work helps you understand how the world works. He said everything's connected. You just have to look close enough to see it. Your daddy sounds like he was a smart man. He was the smartest. Emma's voice went soft. He could fix anything. Cars, motorcycles, our washing machine when it broke. He said there's no such thing as unfixable, just things that need the right tools and enough patience. I wish I could have met him. Me too. Emma looked down at her plate.
He would have liked you. He always said you can't judge people by their covers, that the scariest-looking people are sometimes the kindest, and the nicest-looking people are sometimes the meanest. He said you have to look at what people do, not what they wear. Jake felt that twist in his chest again, sharper this time. "Your foster mother know you're sitting here talking to strangers?" he asked. "Mrs. Henderson doesn't care what I do, as long as I'm on the school bus by 7:45. She's usually asleep when I leave for school anyway. She works nights, cleaning office buildings, and she has 4 other foster kids to deal with, so she doesn't have time to keep track of everybody." 4 other foster kids. That meant 5 checks from the state. That meant serious money if you were someone who viewed children as income instead of responsibility. "Emma," Jake said carefully, "I need you to tell me the truth about something. Are you safe at the Henderson house?" Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Safe how?" "Are they hurting you, hitting you, anything like that?" "No." Emma's answer came quickly, firmly. "Nothing like that. Mrs. Henderson mostly just ignores us. Mr. Henderson works at the mill, and he's never home. It's not like some of the other places I've been. Nobody's mean. They just don't really care." Neglect, then. Not abuse in the legal sense, but the slow, grinding indifference that killed something in a child just as surely as violence did. "What about the other kids?" Jake pressed. "They doing okay?" Emma's expression shuddered. "They're fine." "Emma." "They're fine," she repeated, but her voice had gone flat. "Everyone's fine. I should finish eating. The bus comes in 15 minutes. Jake recognized a wall when he hit one. He backed off, letting Emma focus on her food. But he filed away every detail, every tiny tell, every carefully worded non-answer that told him the truth. Emma wasn't ready to speak. When the yellow school bus appeared in the truck stop parking lot, Emma gathered her backpack with the same careful precision she'd shown counting out her money. "Thank you for breakfast," she said formally. "And I'm glad you're not freezing anymore." "Emma, wait!" Jake pulled out his phone, miraculously still working despite everything. "Give me your number, or the Hendersons' number. I want to make sure you're okay." Emma recited a number from memory. Jake typed it into his contacts, saving it under Emma Rose Carter with a star next to it. "I'm going to check on you," he said, "if that's okay. Make sure you're eating. Make sure you're safe." "Why?" Emma's question was simple, direct. "You don't know me. Why would you care?" Jake thought about all the ways to answer that question. About his daughter Sarah, about his own childhood of poverty and neglect, about the 25 years he'd spent with the hellsangels, learning that family wasn't about blood. It was about showing up. "Because you gave me your last $1.23, he said finally. "Because you looked at me and saw someone worth helping when everyone else saw a threat. Because your mama raised you to be kind even when the world gave you every reason not to be. That matters, Emma. That matters more than you know." Emma's old eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Okay," she said. "You can check on me, but Mr. Jake?" "Yeah?" "If Mrs. Henderson asks, you're my uncle, from my daddy's side. She won't check. She never checks anything, but it's easier if there's a story that makes sense. Otherwise, social services might get involved, and I can't risk that, because they might move me even farther from Tyler." Jake's jaw tightened. This child, planning cover stories to protect herself, learning to navigate systems designed to help her, but that she'd learned to fear. "Your Uncle Jake," he agreed. "Got it." Emma almost smiled. Then she was gone, running for the bus with her too small coat flapping and her backpack bouncing against her thin shoulders. Jake watched the bus pull away,
Then he turned to Crystal, who'd been watching the whole interaction from behind the counter. "How often does she come in here?" he asked. "Every Tuesday morning for the past month," Crystal said. "Just sits in that booth with a glass of water, waiting for the bus."
I kept meaning to do something, but
She trailed off, guilt written across her face. "Where's this Henderson house?" Crystal hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. She pulled out a notepad and wrote down an address. "Old farmhouse about 10 miles east of here," she said. "Rundown place. I've heard talk in town. Nothing good." Jake took the address and filed it away with everything else Emma had told him. "I'm going to need my bike fixed," he said. "You know anyone local who works on Harleys?" "Mike's garage, 2 miles south. He's honest. Expensive, but honest." "Can I use your phone? Mine's almost dead and I need to make some calls." Crystal handed him the cordless from behind the counter without question. Jake stepped outside into the cold that no longer bothered him the same way. The blizzard had passed, leaving everything white and crystalline and beautiful. He dialed the number from memory. It rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered.
Yeah? Hawk, it's Chains. I need the chapter's help with something.
Leonard Hawk Donovan, president of the Hells Angels Montana chapter, had known Jake for 18 years. They'd ridden together, bled together, done time together. Hawk could read volumes in the spaces between words. "You okay?" Hawk asked immediately. "You sound wrong." "Bike's dead. I'm stranded at a truck stop on Route 90. And I just met a 9-year-old girl who gave me her last dollar because she thought I needed coffee more than she did." Silence on the other end. Then, "Tell me." Jake told him. All of it. Emma Rose Carter, the foster home, the separated brother, the careful non-answers that screamed neglect, the $1.23 that was everything she had in the world. When he finished, Hawk was quiet for a long moment. "You planning to do something stupid?" Hawk asked finally. "I'm planning to do something right," Jake corrected. "There's a difference." Sometimes there isn't." Hawk sighed. "What do you need?" "I need someone to check out this foster home, quietly. I need to know exactly how bad it is before I decide what to do about it." "We've got a guy, former PI, good with this kind of thing. I'll make the call." "And Hawk, cancel whatever I had planned in Seattle. I'm not going anywhere until I know this kid is safe." Another pause. "You sure about this? Getting involved in something like this, it could get messy. Social services, law enforcement, people asking questions about why a Hell's Angel is so interested in a foster kid." "I'm sure," Jake said. "Emma Rose Carter gave me everything she had because she thought I needed it more. Nobody's done something like that for me in 25 years, maybe ever. I'm not walking away from her." "All right," Hawk said. "I'll get the guys on it. Give me 48 hours. And Chains? Watch your back. These foster system things, they're complicated. A lot of money involved, a lot of people protecting their interests. You start poking around, someone's going to notice." "Let them notice." Jake hung up and stood in the parking lot for a while, watching the traffic on Route 90. 18-wheelers heading west, passenger cars heading east. Everyone with somewhere to be and someone waiting for them. He thought about Emma on that school bus right now, probably pulling out homework or reading a book or staring out the window thinking about her little brother 60 miles away. He thought about her going back to that farmhouse tonight, to the foster parents who viewed her as a paycheck instead of a person. He thought about his own daughter, Sarah, who he'd failed in ways that probably couldn't be fixed. But maybe he could fix this. Maybe, this one time, he could show up for someone who needed him and actually make a difference. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you for breakfast. You're a good person, Mr. Jake. I hope your bike gets fixed soon."
Jake stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, "You're a good person too, Emma. The best I've met in a long time. I'll check on you soon, I promise." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Okay, I believe you." Those 3 words, "I believe you," hit Jake harder than anything else that morning. This child who'd been through hell, who'd lost her parents and her brother and everything that made her feel safe, still had enough trust left to believe in a stranger's promise. Jake wasn't going to let her down. He walked back into the truck stop to figure out how to get his bike fixed and start the process of keeping a promise to a 9-year-old girl who'd given him everything she had because she thought he looked cold. And somewhere in the back of his mind, the part that had kept him alive through 2 decades of hard living, a small voice whispered that this was going to change everything. The voice, as it turned out, was right. 48 hours turned into 43 hours of Jake Morrison pacing the cramped motel room he'd rented 3 miles from the Henderson farmhouse. His bike sat in Mike's garage with a blown engine that would take a week and $2,000 to fix. Money Jake didn't have until the club wired it to him. But the bike was the least of his problems. His phone rang at 2:17 a.m. on Thursday morning. "We've got a problem," Hawk said without preamble. "Tommy finished his reconnaissance. You need to hear this." Jake sat up, suddenly wide awake. "Talk to me." "The Henderson place is worse than you thought. Tommy counted 6 kids total, not 5. Ages range from 4 to 13. The house has 1 working bathroom for all of them. Heat's barely functional. He clocks the indoor temperature at 53 degrees. There's food in the house, but it's mostly expired or nearly gone. Looks like Henderson buys in bulk once a month and stretches it until the money runs out." Jake's hand tightened on the phone. Emma said they weren't being hit. "They're not. Tommy didn't see evidence of physical abuse. But what he did see was systematic neglect on a scale that should have triggered a dozen red flags with social services. These kids are being warehoused, Chains. Fed just enough to avoid starvation, housed just barely within code requirements, and otherwise ignored, while Henderson collects roughly $4,000 a month in state payments. $4,000. Give or take. And here's where it gets interesting. Henderson's running the same operation in 2 other counties. Different names, his wife's maiden name and his brother's name. Tommy pulled property records. 3 houses, 18 kids total, probably pulling in $12,000 a month from the state while spending maybe a quarter of that on actual care. Jake stood up and started pacing again. "That's fraud. That's criminal neglect. Why hasn't anyone reported this?" "Someone did."
Multiple someones, actually. Tommy talked to a retired teacher who filed complaints 3 years ago. Nothing happened. He talked to a neighbor who called the tip line twice last year. Both times a caseworker came out, Henderson put on a show, and the case was closed. "Why?" Hawk's voice went grim. "Because the caseworker assigned to this county is Henderson's cousin. Gerald Henderson and Linda Martinez are related through Henderson's mother's side. She's been signing off on his homes for 6 years, collecting what Tommy suspects are regular payments to keep her reports clean." Jake stopped pacing. "We need to take this to someone higher up. State Capitol. FBI if we have to." "Already on it. I've got Rebecca Torres looking at the legal angles. She says we need documentation. Photos, witness statements, evidence of the financial fraud. She says if we go in half-cocked, Henderson will lawyer up and the kids will disappear into the system before we can protect them." "How long do we have?" "Torres says we need 2 weeks minimum to build a case that'll stick. But Chains, there's something else." Emma Rose Carter specifically. Tommy got her school records, don't ask how. She's been absent 8 days this semester, tardy 17 times. Her grades have dropped from straight A's last year to mostly C's and D's now. Her teachers have filed 3 separate concerns about her appearing malnourished and falling asleep in class. Jake felt cold settle in his bones that had nothing to do with the Montana winter. "I'm going to see her," he said. "Today." "Be smart about it. You show up as a Hell's Angel making accusations, you'll spook Henderson and torpedo any legal case we're building. You need to be Uncle Jake, the concerned family member checking in on his niece. Friendly, non-threatening, gathering information, not making demands." "I know how to play it." "Do you?" Hawk's voice sharpened. "Because from where I'm sitting, you sound like a man who's about to burn down a house with kids inside because you're too angry to think straight." Jake forced himself to breathe. "I'm not going to do anything that puts Emma at risk. But I'm also not going to sit in this motel room while she goes hungry because some piece of trash is stealing money meant to feed her." "Good. Then stick to the plan. Visit as Uncle Jake. Document everything you see. Keep Emma talking. Get her to trust you enough that when this goes sideways, and it will go sideways, she'll let you help her." After Hawk hung up, Jake sat in the dark and thought about Emma Rose Carter offering him her last $1.23. About her old eyes and her too small coat, and the way she'd said, "Everyone's fine." Like saying it enough times might make it true. He texted her at 6:30 a.m. "Can I take you to breakfast before school?" The response came back in under a minute. "Yes, please. Same place?" "I'll be there at 7. Jake pulled into the Big Sky truck stop at 6:52. Emma was already in their booth, glass of water in front of her, backpack at her feet. She looked up when he walked in, and something in her expression loosened. Relief, maybe, or the simple comfort of someone showing up when they said they would. "You came back," she said. "Told you I would." Jake slid into the seat across from her. "How was school yesterday?" "Fine." "Emma?" She sighed. "Okay, it was hard. We had a math test, and I hadn't eaten breakfast, so I couldn't concentrate, and I think I failed it. And Sarah Mitchell said I smelled bad, which isn't fair because I showered, but Mrs. Henderson only gives us 10 minutes each in the bathroom, and there's 6 of us now, and the water runs cold after the first 2 people, and—" She stopped abruptly, jaw clenching. "6 of you?" Jake kept his voice casual. "I thought you said 4 other foster kids." Emma's eyes went wary. "Did I?" "I meant 5 total, including me. 5. "So 4 other kids besides you." "Right, 4 others." But her gaze slid away, and Jake knew she was protecting someone. Another child who wasn't supposed to be there. Another source of income Henderson was hiding from the official records. Crystal brought coffee without being asked. "The usual for the young lady?" "Please," Emma said quietly. "If that's okay, Mr. Jake." "More than okay." Jake waited until Crystal left before continuing. "Emma, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that?" "I guess." "Are you safe at the Henderson house? And I don't just mean from being hit. I mean safe in all the ways that matter. Enough food, enough heat, enough care?" Emma's fingers started shredding a napkin, the same tell from 2 days ago. "I have a bed. I have a roof. That's more than some kids get." "That's not what I asked." "It's what I can tell you." Emma's voice went hard, "Because if I say the wrong thing, social services will move me, and if they move me, I'll be even farther from Tyler. And I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't be farther from him than I already am. He's 6 years old, and he thinks I abandoned him, and I only get to see him once a month, and that's not enough, Mr. Jake. It's not nearly enough." Jake reached across the table and covered her small hand with his. What if I told you I might be able to help with that? With getting you and Tyler together? Emma pulled her hand back like she'd been burned.
You can't promise that. Nobody can promise that. Do you know how many people have promised me things in the last 8 months? The social worker who said she'd find a home for both of us. The first foster family who said they'd adopt us and then changed their minds. The second foster family who said they'd at least keep me until I turned 18 and then kicked me out after 3 weeks because I was too difficult. Everyone promises.
Nobody follows through. I'm not everyone. No, you're a stranger I met 3 days ago who bought me breakfast twice. That doesn't make you my savior, Mr. Jake. That makes you nice. And nice is good, but nice doesn't change the system. Nice doesn't get my brother back. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He thought about Sarah, about all the promises he'd made and broken during her childhood. Soccer games he'd missed, school plays he'd skipped, birthdays forgotten because of club business or hangovers, or his own inability to be the father she deserved. You're right, he said quietly. I'm just a stranger who bought you breakfast. But I'm a stranger who knows people, Emma. People with resources. People who know how to navigate systems and find solutions that other people can't see. And I'm a stranger who keeps his promises. Everyone says that, too. Then let me prove it. Jake pulled out his phone and opened his photos. He'd had Hawk send him screenshots of the property records, the complaint history, everything Tommy had found. This is your foster father, Gerald Henderson, and this is documentation showing he's running foster homes in 3 different counties under different names. And this is a complaint history showing multiple people have tried to report problems with his homes. And this... He paused, making sure Emma was paying attention. This is evidence that his cousin, who works for social services, has been covering for him. Emma stared at the phone screen. Her face had gone pale.
You investigated him, she whispered. In 3 days, you investigated my foster father.
My people did. And we're building a case that will shut down all 3 of his homes and make sure the kids in them, including you, get placed somewhere safe.
How long?
2 weeks. Maybe less if we can move faster. Emma's hands were shaking now.
2 weeks is forever when you're waiting.
2 weeks is 14 more days of Tyler thinking I don't want to see him. 2 weeks is... She stopped, pressed her palms flat against the table. What if Henderson finds out? What if he figures out someone's investigating him and he... And he what? Emma's voice dropped to barely a whisper.
Last month, another kid asked too many questions. Marcus. He was 12. He told his teacher that Mr. Henderson was keeping most of the grocery money for himself. The teacher called social services, and Mrs. Martinez came out. And 2 days later, Marcus was gone, transferred to another home. Mr. Henderson said it was because Marcus was disruptive and they couldn't handle him anymore. But I heard him on the phone. He told someone that kids who talk too much don't stay long in his house.
Jake felt his jaw tighten. Emma, has Henderson threatened you?
Not directly. But I hear things. I see things. I know what happens to kids who cause trouble.
She looked up and her eyes were ancient again.
So I don't cause trouble. I eat what I'm given. I wear what I'm given. I say yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and I don't complain. Because complaining means getting moved, and getting moved means losing what little contact I have with Tyler.
The food arrived. Pancakes and eggs and bacon. The same meal from 2 days ago. Emma picked up her fork but didn't start eating.
What do you need me to do? She asked.
I need you to write down everything, Jake said. Every meal they skip. Every time the heat doesn't work. Every time you're treated like you don't matter. Dates, times, details. Can you do that?
Like a diary?
Exactly, like a diary. And I need you to keep it hidden. Don't let Henderson or anyone else know you're writing it. Can you do that? Emma nodded slowly.
I can hide it in my locker at school. I'm the only one with the combination.
Good. And, Emma, I need you to trust me enough to tell me the truth from now on. No more, everyone's fine, when they're not. No more protecting Henderson because you're scared. I can't help you if I don't know how bad it really is. Emma stared at him for a long moment. Then, so quietly he almost missed it.
There's a little girl, Sophia. She's 4. She's not supposed to be there. Mrs. Martinez doesn't know about her. Mr. Henderson takes cash from her grandmother every month to keep her off the books. Sophia sleeps on a mattress in the basement because there's no room upstairs. She cries at night because she's scared and cold, and she doesn't understand why her grandmother gave her away.
Jake's vision went red around the edges. How long has Sophia been there?
3 weeks. Mr. Henderson told us if anyone asks, we don't know her. She doesn't exist. If we tell, he said we'll all be separated and sent to different homes and we'll never see each other again.
He's lying, Emma. That's not how it works.
That's exactly how it works,
Emma said fiercely. You think the system cares about keeping siblings together? You think anyone cares that Tyler cries himself to sleep every night asking for me? They don't. They care about paperwork and budgets and making sure homes have enough beds. They don't care about what actually happens to the kids in those beds. Jake forced himself to breathe. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to write everything down about Sophia. When she arrived, where she sleeps, what her grandmother's name is, everything. And I'm going to make some calls, and we're going to move faster than 2 weeks. Because a 4-year-old sleeping in a basement is an emergency, and emergencies don't wait for perfect legal cases.
If you move too fast, he'll know someone talked, and he'll know it was me.
Then we'll make sure you're safe before we move. I promise, Emma. I will not let Henderson hurt you.
You can't promise that.
But Emma's voice had lost some of its edge. She wanted to believe him. Jake could hear it underneath the fear and the learned helplessness. Watch me, Jake said. They finished breakfast in silence. When Emma's school bus pulled into the parking lot, she gathered her backpack with the same careful precision as before. But at the door, she turned back.
Mr. Jake?
Yeah?
If you're lying to me, if this is all just talk and you disappear like everyone else, I don't think I'll be able to trust anyone ever again. Do you understand that?
Jake felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders like iron. I understand, he said, and I'm not going anywhere. Emma nodded once, then ran for the bus. Jake called Hawk before the bus was out of sight. We're moving now, he said. There's a 4-year-old sleeping in the basement. Cash payments, off the books, completely illegal. This isn't neglect anymore, Hawk. This is trafficking. Jesus Christ. Get Torres on the phone. Get everyone we know with connections to state government. I don't care what it costs or who we have to pressure. We're shutting Henderson down today.
Chains, if we move without proper documentation,
then we'll deal with the consequences. But I'm not leaving a 4-year-old in a basement for another 2 weeks while we build a perfect case. Call me back in an hour with options. Jake spent the next hour driving past the Henderson farmhouse. It looked exactly like Tommy had described. Run down, isolated. The kind of place that screamed neglect to anyone who bothered to look. But nobody had bothered to look. Not the neighbors, not the school system, not the social workers who were supposed to protect vulnerable children. His phone rang at exactly 9:43 a.m. Torres says we can file an emergency motion based on the Sophia situation, Hawk said. But we need evidence. Photos, ideally. Witness testimony at minimum. And we need it before close of business today if we want a judge to act before the weekend.
I'll get it.
How? Don't ask questions you don't want answered. Jake hung up and texted Emma. Can you take a photo of where Sophia sleeps? Just the room, not her. Make it look like an accident if anyone sees. The response took 15 minutes.
I'm in school. I can't until tonight.
Tonight might be too late. Is there anyone at the house right now who could help? Another long pause. Then,
There's an older boy. Marcus got sent away, but there's another one. Devin. He's 13. He might help. But Mr. Jake, if we get caught...
You won't get caught. Tell Devin I'll pay him $100 if he takes photos and gets them to you. Can you do that?
Maybe. I'll try.
Jake waited. Every minute felt like an hour. At 11:07, his phone buzzed with incoming photos. The basement was worse than he'd imagined. Concrete floor, exposed insulation, a single bare bulb, a stained mattress in the corner with a threadbare blanket, a stuffed animal that had seen better days, and in the corner, barely visible, a small pile of clothes and a child's shoe. The second photo showed the upstairs bathroom, broken tiles, mold creeping up the walls, a toilet that looked like it hadn't been properly cleaned in months. The third photo showed the kitchen, nearly empty refrigerator, shelves with expired food, a trash can overflowing with empty liquor bottles. Devin had been thorough. Jake forwarded everything to Hawk. Tell Torres this is what she needs. Move, now. At 2:34 p.m., Emma texted,
Mr. Henderson just got a call. He's angry. He's yelling about inspectors and investigations, and someone's going to pay. Mr. Jake, did you do something?
Jake's heart rate spiked. Stay calm. Stay quiet. Don't do anything to draw attention. Where's Sophia?
Hiding in the basement. Mr. Henderson told all of us to stay in our rooms. He's on the phone with someone named Linda. I think it's Mrs. Martinez.
Good. Let them panic. Help is coming. But 2 hours later, when Jake got the call from Torres, the news wasn't what he'd hoped. The judge reviewed the evidence, Torres said. He's issuing a warrant for inspection tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. State police will accompany social workers, real ones, not Martinez. They'll document everything, remove the children, and arrest Henderson on the spot if the situation matches what we've described. Tomorrow? Why not tonight? Because the system moves at the speed of bureaucracy, not the speed of our outrage. I'm sorry, Jake. Tomorrow morning is the best I could do. Jake wanted to punch something. What about Sophia? What about the 4-year-old sleeping in a basement tonight? She'll sleep there one more night, and then she'll be safe. Sometimes that's all we can do. After Torres hung up, Jake sat in his truck and tried to convince himself that one more night was acceptable, that Emma and Devin and Sophia and all the other kids could survive 12 more hours of Henderson's neglect. But when his phone rang at 6:47 p.m. and Emma's voice came through shaking with terror, he knew everything had gone wrong.
Mr. Jake, you have to help us. Mr. Henderson knows someone talked. He knows someone took those photos, and he's... Oh, God. He's loading Sophia into his truck. He says he's taking her back to her grandmother, but I don't believe him. He's too angry. He's going to...
Where's Tyler? Jake was already starting his truck.
What?
Your brother Tyler. Is he still in Billings?
Yes, but why?
Because Henderson is going to use him as leverage. He's going to threaten to make sure you never see Tyler again unless you all keep quiet. Emma, listen to me carefully. Get Devin and any other older kids and barricade yourselves in a room with a lock. Right now. Don't wait. Don't argue. Just do it.
But Sophia...
I'll get Sophia. You protect yourself and the others. Do it now, Emma. Please. He heard scuffling, Emma's voice calling for Devin, the sound of running footsteps. Then the phone went dead. Jake broke every traffic law between town and the Henderson farmhouse. He called Hawk while driving 90 miles an hour on icy roads. "Henderson's running," he said. "He's got Sophia, and he's going to disappear before the cops can get there tomorrow. I need backup at the house in the next 10 minutes, or we're going to lose her." "The brothers are 20 minutes out." "I don't have 20 minutes!" Jake's truck skidded into the farmhouse driveway just as Henderson's F-150 was pulling out. Jake blocked the exit with his truck and jumped out. Gerald Henderson was exactly what Jake expected. Mid-50s, overweight, the look of someone who'd been getting away with things for so long he'd stopped believing consequences existed. "Get out of my way," Henderson snarled. "Not a chance."
"Where's the girl?" "What girl? I don't know what you're talking about."
Jake walked to Henderson's truck and looked in the back seat. Sophia was there, tiny, dark-haired, terrified. Her eyes went wide when she saw Jake. "Get away from my truck," Henderson said. "I'm calling the cops." "Please do. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the 4-year-old you're transporting illegally." Henderson's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "You're that biker. The one who's been sniffing around Emma. I should have known. You think you can just show up and play hero? You don't know how this works. I've got lawyers. I've got connections. I've been doing this for 6 years and nobody's touched me." "Yeah, well, your 6-year run just ended." Henderson laughed. "You really think that? Tomorrow they'll come. They'll write up some violations. I'll pay some fines, maybe close one of the houses. But the kids? They'll just get shuffled to another home just like mine." "Because there aren't enough good homes, biker. There's never enough. So people like me fill the gap, and people like you pretend to care for a few weeks and then move on to the next cause." Jake felt something crack inside him. "I'm not people like me. I'm exactly the person you should be afraid of." "Is that a threat?" "Because threats don't scare me. It's a promise." Jake pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "I want to report a kidnapping in progress. Adult male, mid-50s, attempting to transport a minor child without legal custody. We're at 4747 County Road 18. Henderson's eyes went wide. "You son of a..." The gunshot cracked through the night air before Henderson could finish. Jake felt the bullet pass close enough to his head that he heard the whistle. He dove for cover behind his truck as Henderson fired again. "You should have stayed out of this!" Henderson screamed. "You should have minded your own business!" Jake heard sirens in the distance. The 911 operator must have kept the line open, must have heard the shots. But they were still too far away. Henderson fired twice more, both shots going wide. Then Jake heard the rumble. 6 motorcycles came roaring up the driveway, headlights cutting through the darkness. The Hells Angels Montana chapter, arriving exactly when they were needed. Henderson's gun hand started shaking. "You're surrounded," Hawk's voice boomed from the lead bike. "Put the weapon down. Now." Henderson looked at the bikes, at Jake, at the farmhouse where terrified children were watching from windows. His shoulders slumped. The gun fell from his hand. Jake crossed the distance in 3 strides and pulled Sophia from the truck. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and held on like she'd never let go. "You're safe," Jake whispered. "I've got you." The state police arrived 6 minutes later, followed by social workers, followed by news cameras that Henderson's cousin Linda must have called, trying to control the narrative. But there was no controlling this. 6 children removed from the home, Henderson in handcuffs, evidence of fraud and trafficking and systematic abuse that couldn't be explained away. Emma emerged from the house with Devon and 3 other kids. Her eyes found Jake, found Sophia safe in his arms, and something in her expression broke open. Relief and terror and hope all mixed together. "You came," she said. Told you I would.
But Tyler, where's Tyler? Mr. Henderson said he'd make sure I never saw him again. Where is he?
Jake felt his heart stop. In all the chaos, he'd forgotten about Tyler. Forgotten that Henderson had made threats. Forgotten that a 6-year-old boy was alone in Billings with no one to protect him. "Hawk," he called out. "We need someone in Billings, now." Tyler Carter, age 6. Foster home address. "Emma, what's the address?" But Emma wasn't listening. She was staring at a police car that had just pulled up, and the officer getting out was holding the hand of a small boy with blonde hair and Emma's eyes. "Tyler!" Emma screamed. She ran. Tyler saw her and started running too, breaking free from the officer's grip. They collided in the middle of the driveway, Emma dropping to her knees and wrapping her brother in her arms so tight it looked like she'd never let go.
I thought I lost you,
Emma sobbed.
I thought he'd taken you away forever.
I'm here, Tyler said.
I'm here, Emmy. Don't cry.
Jake watched them hold each other and felt something shift in his chest. This was why it mattered. This was why he'd gotten involved. Not for redemption or glory or to fix his own broken relationship with his daughter. For this. For 2 kids who'd lost everything, finding each other again. The social worker approached, a different woman, older, with kind eyes that reminded Jake of his mother.
They'll need emergency placement, she said quietly. Together this time. I'll make sure of it.
What if I knew someone who could take them? Jake heard himself say. The social worker looked at him, at his leather cut, his tattoos, everything that screamed danger to people who didn't know better.
Are you licensed for foster care?
Not yet, but I could be. She studied him for a long moment. Then she looked at Emma and Tyler, still holding each other like the world might tear them apart again. She looked at Sophia, asleep now in Jake's arms, peaceful for probably the first time in weeks.
Call me tomorrow,
she said.
We'll talk about options.
As the chaos continued around them, police processing the scene, social workers documenting everything, news cameras trying to get the story, Jake stood with Sophia in his arms and watched Emma and Tyler begin the impossible work of healing. He'd made a promise to a 9-year-old girl who'd given him her last dollar. And somehow, impossibly, he'd kept it. But as he watched the siblings being loaded into separate social services vehicles, despite the workers' promises, as he heard Emma's screams of protest and Tyler's terrified crying, Jake realized the fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Jake caught up to the social worker before she could close the door of the vehicle holding Emma. You said they'd stay together.
I said I'd make sure of it,
the woman replied, not unkindly.
But emergency placement doesn't work like that. We have limited beds, and right now I've got 6 children who need immediate shelter. Emma and Tyler will be in the same facility, different rooms.
That's the best I can do tonight. That's not good enough. It's what we have. She started to close the door. Wait. Jake pulled out his phone, pulled up the contact information. Call Rebecca Torres. She's a family lawyer. She'll explain to you that separating those kids after what they've been through is going to cause more trauma than one more night in a bad situation would have. The social worker's expression hardened.
Are you seriously suggesting I should have left them with Henderson?
I'm suggesting you're breaking a promise to a 9-year-old who's already had every adult in her life break promises. Emma, can you hear me? Emma's face appeared in the window, streaked with tears.
They're taking Tyler away again.
Just for tonight. I'm going to fix this.
You can't fix this!
Emma's voice cracked.
You can't fix anything!
This is how it works. They say things will be better, and then they're worse, and nobody cares that Tyler needs me, and I need him, and we're all we have left. Tyler's crying carried from 3 vehicles away. Emmy! Emmy, don't leave me! Jake felt something break in his chest. He looked at the social worker. "What's your name?" "Catherine Mills." "Ms. Mills, I need you to listen to me very carefully. In the past 72 hours, Emma Rose Carter has survived systematic neglect, witnessed a shooting, and been promised multiple times that things would get better. She gave me her last dollar because she thought I needed coffee more than she did. She's 9 years old, and she's already lost more than most people lose in a lifetime. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, find a way to put her and Tyler in the same room tonight. Please." Catherine Mills stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Linda, it's Catherine.
I need you to make space for siblings. Yes, I know you're full. Make space anyway. 2 kids, 9 and 6. They've been separated for 8 months, and I'm not doing that to them for one more night. Figure it out." She hung up and looked at Jake. "They'll be together. But Mr. Morrison, and yes, I know who you are. The officer already filled me in. This doesn't solve the bigger problem. These children need permanent placement, and the list of qualified homes is very short. What happened tonight will make headlines. People will want to help. But in 2 weeks, when the cameras are gone, Emma and Tyler will still need a family. Can you be that family?" "Yes." "You're sure? Because getting licensed for foster care takes months. Background checks, home inspections, training courses, and that's assuming you pass, which, given your association with "I'll pass," whatever it takes. "I'll pass." Catherine pulled a business card from her pocket. "Call me Monday morning." We'll talk about next steps. But Mr. Morrison, don't make promises to these kids that you can't keep. They've had enough of those. Jake watched the vehicles drive away, Emma's face pressed against the glass, still crying. Tyler's screams faded into the distance. Sophia was already gone, taken to a specialized facility for children under 5. Hawk appeared at his shoulder. "You just volunteered to become a foster parent." "I know." "You understand what that means? The scrutiny. The hellsangels don't exactly have a reputation that inspires confidence in child welfare workers." "I don't care about the reputation. I care about those kids." "Noble. Stupid, but noble." Hawk lit a cigarette. "The club will back you, but Chains, you need to understand something. This isn't like fixing someone's bike or helping a brother through a rough patch. This is forever. Kids don't come with an expiration date. You take them, you're signing up for 18 years minimum." School functions, parent-teacher conferences, teenage rebellion, the whole deal. Are you ready for that? Jake thought about his daughter Sarah, who he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. About all the ways he'd failed as a father the first time around. "No," he said honestly. "But I'm going to do it anyway." His phone rang at 11:47 that night. An unknown number.
"Mr. Jake?"
Emma's voice was small and scared.
"Miss Mills said I could call you, just for a minute."
"Are you with Tyler?"
"Yeah, we're in the same room. There's bunk beds. He's asleep now. He cried himself to sleep, but at least he's here."
A pause.
"Mr. Jake, what happens now?"
"Now, I figure out how to keep the promise I made you. About you and Tyler staying together."
"You can't adopt us. You're not married. You're a biker. You probably don't even have a house that passes inspection. No offense."
None taken. And you're right about most of that. But Emma, I need to ask you something. If I could make it work, if I could get licensed and pass all the checks and jump through every hoop they put in front of me, would you want that? Would you want to live with me and Tyler? The silence stretched so long, Jake thought the call had dropped. Why?
Emma finally asked.
Why would you do that for us?
Because you gave me your last $1.23. Because you saw me when everyone else looked away. Because you and Tyler deserve a family that shows up. And I'm really good at showing up. I've spent 25 years showing up for my brothers in the club. I can show up for you too.
What about your daughter? The one you were going to see in Seattle?
Jake closed his eyes. He'd mentioned Sarah once, briefly, and Emma had remembered. Of course she had. Kids who'd been through what she'd been through remembered everything. Sarah's complicated, he said. We haven't talked in a long time. She's angry at me for a lot of things I did wrong when she was growing up. But Emma, that's exactly why I know I can do this. Because I messed up once, and I learned from it, and I won't make those same mistakes again.
Everyone says they've learned. Then they do the exact same things.
You're right to be skeptical. I would be too. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to show up every day, make every call, attend every meeting, pass every inspection. And when I get licensed, not if, when, I'm going to be there for you and Tyler the way I should have been there for Sarah. Deal? Another long silence. Then, so quietly he almost missed it.
Deal. But, Mr. Jake, if you break this promise, it'll break me. Do you understand that?
I understand. And I won't break it. After Emma hung up, Jake sat in the dark of his motel room and made a list of everything he needed to do. It was a long list. Background checks, financial records, proof of stable housing, character references, training certification, the kind of bureaucratic nightmare that would have made him quit before he started if the stakes were anything less than 2 kids who needed him. He called the only person who might understand. Sarah answered on the 4th ring.
Who is this?
It's Dad. The silence was ice cold.
It's been 5 years. You don't get to call yourself that anymore.
Sarah, I need your help.
Of course you do. That's the only time you call, when you need something.
You're right. I was a terrible father. I chose the club over you more times than I can count. I missed your graduation, your birthdays, every important moment because I was too selfish or too drunk or too focused on things that didn't matter. And I can't change any of that. But I can ask you to help me do better for 2 kids who need what I never gave you. He heard her breath catch.
What are you talking about?
Jake told her everything. Emma, Tyler, the Henderson house, the shooting, the promise he'd made. When he finished, Sarah was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up.
You want to foster children,
she said finally.
You. The man who forgot I existed every time the club called.
Yes.
Why should I believe you'll do better this time?
Because I failed you, and I've spent 5 years knowing it. Because these kids remind me of everything I got wrong with you, and I can't fix what I broke, but maybe I can fix this. And because... Jake's voice cracked. Because I need you to believe I can change. Even if it's not for you anymore. Even if we're never okay again. I need you to believe I'm capable of being the father I should have been. Sarah started crying. Not angry crying, but the kind of crying that comes from old wounds breaking open.
I moved to Montana 6 months ago, she said. I'm in Missoula, 2 hours from where you are.
Jake felt the room tilt. What?
I got a job with a family counseling practice. I was going to call you eventually. Maybe, I don't know.
I was still angry. She took a shaky breath.
But if you're serious about this, if you really want to help these kids, then I'll help you. Not for you, for them. Because they deserve better than what I got.
Sarah,
Don't apologize again. Apologies don't mean anything without action. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to call in every favor I have with the Montana foster care system. I'm going to get you fast-tracked through the application process. And I'm going to show up at every inspection, every meeting, every hearing. I'm going to vouch for you, even though you don't deserve it. But Dad, if you fail these kids the way you failed me, I will personally make sure you never get another chance. Are we clear?
crystal clear.
Good. I'll email you the paperwork tonight. Start filling it out.
Monday morning came with a phone call from Catherine Mills. Mr. Morrison, I have good news and bad news.
The good news is that given the unusual circumstances and your daughter's professional credentials, we're willing to expedite your application. The bad news is that there's opposition.
What kind of opposition?
The kind with money and lawyers. A group of concerned citizens has filed a formal complaint arguing that a member of a motorcycle club shouldn't be allowed to foster children. They've hired Preston and Caldwell, one of the biggest firms in the state. This is going to get ugly.
Who's leading the group?
A man named Richard Ashworth. His son was assaulted by bikers in Seattle 5 years ago. He's made it his mission to keep motorcycle clubs away from children. And Mr. Morrison? He's very good at what he does. Jake felt his jaw tighten.
When's the hearing?
2 weeks from Thursday. Public forum at the county courthouse. You'll have a chance to make your case. So will Ashworth. The judge will make a determination based on what's presented. I'm required to tell you that the odds are not in your favor.
I've beat worse odds.
I hope so. For Emma and Tyler's sake. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Jake filled out more paperwork than he'd seen in his entire life. Background checks, financial disclosures, medical records, employment history. Sarah showed up with checklists and deadlines and the kind of organizational efficiency that reminded Jake painfully of her mother.
Your credit score is terrible, she said, reviewing his financial records. And you've had 17 different addresses in the past 20 years.
Club business. We move around.
Well, that's going to look great to a judge. Your Honor, I've moved 17 times, but trust me, I'll provide stability for traumatized children.
Sarah threw the papers down in frustration.
Dad, they're going to eat you alive at this hearing.
Then we make sure they don't have ammunition. What do I need to fix?
They worked 18-hour days. Jake took out a lease on a 3-bedroom house. Not much, but clean and safe with a yard. He enrolled in parenting classes, anger management, trauma-informed care training. He collected character references from everyone he'd ever helped. Veterans, business owners, people who could speak to the man he was instead of the reputation he carried. Emma called every night at 8 p.m. sharp. Sometimes she talked about Tyler, how he was doing in the temporary home. Sometimes she talked about school, the teachers who were trying to help her catch up on months of missed work. Sometimes she just breathed into the phone, finding comfort in knowing someone was there.
Mr. Henderson's lawyer came to talk to me, she said one night. He wanted me to say you threatened Mr. Henderson, that you attacked him for no reason.
Jake's hand tightened on the phone.
What did you tell him?
I told him the truth, that Mr. Henderson pulled a gun on you, that you saved Sophia.
That you kept your promise when everyone else broke theirs. A pause. His lawyer said I was being influenced by you, that I didn't understand what was good for me. He said kids need stable, traditional families, not bikers who play hero.
Emma, I told him to go to hell.
Despite everything, Jake almost smiled. You said that?
Well, I said heck because Ms. Mills was right there, but I meant hell. Mr. Jake, they're going to try to make you look bad at the hearing. Mr. Henderson's lawyer said so. He said they'd bring up every bad thing the Hells Angels have ever done and make it sound like you did it all personally.
Let them try.
You're not scared?
I'm terrified, but not of Richard Ashworth and his lawyers. I'm scared of letting you and Tyler down. That's the only thing that scares me. The night before the hearing, Hawk called a meeting of the entire Montana chapter. 37 members showed up, filling the clubhouse wall to wall. Tomorrow Chains goes before a judge, Hawk said, and whether you like it or not, that judge isn't just evaluating him. She's evaluating all of us. Every choice we've made, every reputation we've earned, every stereotype people have about motorcycle clubs. So I'm going to ask you all something, and I need honest answers. Do we back Chains in this? Knowing it's going to bring scrutiny, knowing people are going to dig into our business, knowing we might lose members who don't want the heat. The vote was unanimous. Then here's how this works, Hawk continued. Tomorrow, half of you are staying away from that courthouse. We don't give Ashworth's lawyers the visual of 30 bikers showing up to intimidate a judge. But the other half? You're wearing your Sunday best, and you're sitting in that courtroom, and you're showing that judge that we're not the monsters she's been told we are. Questions? Tommy Wrench Valdez raised his hand.
What about the press? They're going to be all over this.
Let them. We've got nothing to hide. Chains saved 6 kids from a trafficking situation. That's the story. Everything else is noise. The courthouse was packed when Jake arrived at 9 a.m. News cameras lined the steps. Protesters held signs, some supporting him, others demanding he be denied custody. Richard Ashworth stood at the center of the opposition, silver-haired and perfectly dressed, looking like everyone's idea of a concerned citizen. Inside, the courtroom was divided. On one side, the Hells Angels members in their cleanest clothes, faces grim but present. On the other, Ashworth's supporters, clutching their own signs about protecting children from gang violence. Emma and Tyler sat in the front row with Catherine Mills. Emma wore a dress that Sarah had bought for her. Tyler held a stuffed bear that someone from the temporary home had given him. Both children looked terrified. Judge Patricia Landry was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She called the hearing to order at exactly 9:30 a.m. This is a public forum to determine the fitness of Mr. Jake Morrison to provide foster care to Emma Rose Carter, age 9, and Tyler James Carter, age 6. Mr. Ashworth, you filed the complaint. You may present your case first. Richard Ashworth approached the podium with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. Your Honor, I'll be brief. Mr. Morrison is a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, an organization the Department of Justice classifies as a criminal enterprise. In the past 20 years, Hells Angels members have been convicted of drug trafficking, weapons charges, assault, and murder. Mr. Morrison himself has been arrested 3 times, though charges were dropped. He has no experience raising children, no stable employment history, and no permanent residence until 2 weeks ago. Allowing him to foster vulnerable, traumatized children would be a catastrophic failure of our duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Ashworth pulled out a thick folder. I have documentation of 47 incidents involving Hells Angels members and violence against civilians. I have testimony from law enforcement describing the organization as dangerous and unpredictable. And I have statements from child psychology experts explaining why children who have experienced trauma need stable, traditional family structures, not experimental placement with individuals whose lifestyle choices are fundamentally incompatible with child welfare. He set the folder on the judge's desk. Your Honor, I understand Mr. Morrison's intentions may be good, but good intentions don't qualify someone to raise children. These kids have lost their parents. They've suffered neglect and trauma. They deserve better than to become a biker's redemption project. The courtroom erupted in applause from Ashworth's supporters. Judge Landry gavelled for silence. Mr. Morrison, you may present your case. Jake stood up, and every eye in the courtroom tracked him. He walked to the podium in the khakis and button-down shirt that felt like costume, carrying his own folder of documents. Your Honor, everything Mr. Ashworth said about the Hells Angels is technically true. We're not perfect. Some members have made terrible choices. I won't stand here and pretend otherwise. But Mr. Ashworth left out some important context. In the past 5 years, the Montana chapter has raised $47,000 for veterans' causes. We've organized toy drives for underprivileged children. We've provided disaster relief during the wildfires. We've done these things not for publicity, but because we believe in taking care of our community. Jake opened his folder. I have letters here from 12 veterans I've helped repair motorcycles for free. From the principal at Emma's school describing how her performance has improved since I came into her life. From Catherine Mills herself, stating that in her professional opinion, removing me from Emma and Tyler's support system would cause significant harm. And I have a letter from my daughter, explaining why, despite our complicated history, she believes I can do this. He looked at Sarah in the third row. She nodded. But, Your Honor, the most important voice in this room isn't mine or Mr. Ashworth's. It's Emma's. She's 9 years old, but she's lived through more than most adults ever will. She knows what she needs. And if this court actually cares about what's best for her, you'll listen to what she has to say. Judge Landry looked at Emma. Miss Carter, would you like to speak? Emma stood up slowly. Catherine Mills started to stand with her, but Emma shook her head. She walked to the podium alone, so small she had to stand on tiptoes to reach the microphone. I don't know how to do this, Emma said. Her voice shook, but held. I'm not good at public speaking, but I know how to tell the truth. So that's what I'm going to do. She looked at Richard Ashworth. You don't know me. You never asked what I need or what I want. You just decided that someone like Mr. Jake can't take care of someone like me because of what jacket he wears. But I'm the one who met him first. I'm the one who saw him when he was freezing and alone. And I'm the one who knows that he's kept every single promise he made to me. Emma's voice got stronger. Mr. Henderson promised us food and safety. He lied. My first foster family promised to adopt us. They lied. The social worker promised Tyler and I would stay together. She couldn't keep it. But Mr. Jake? He said he'd make sure Tyler and I weren't separated. And we weren't. He said he'd shut down Mr. Henderson's house. And he did. He said he'd show up for me, and he's called every single night for 2 weeks just to make sure I'm okay. Tears started streaming down Emma's face, but she didn't stop. You want to talk about what's best for me? What's best for me is having someone who sees me as a person, not a paycheck or a problem. What's best for me is having someone who doesn't give up when things get hard. Mr. Jake is a biker. Yeah, okay. He's also the only adult who's ever kept a promise to me. And if this court says that's not good enough, then you're telling me that how someone looks matters more than how they act. And my mama taught me that's wrong. Emma turned to Judge Landry. I'm 9 years old. I know I don't get to decide where I live. I know adults make those choices. But I'm asking you, I'm begging you, please don't take away the only person who's made me feel safe since my parents died. Please. The courtroom was dead silent. Even Ashworth's supporters had stopped their murmuring. Tyler started crying in the front row, and Catherine Mills pulled him close. Judge Landry looked at Emma for a long moment. Then she looked at Jake.
Then she looked at the 2 folders on her desk, Ashworth's thick compilation of allegations and Jake's thinner collection of letters and testimonies. "We'll take a 30-minute recess," she said. "Then I'll issue my ruling." Those 30 minutes felt like 30 years. Jake stood in the courthouse hallway while Sarah paced and Hawk smoked, and Emma held Tyler's hand with white-knuckled intensity. "You did good in there," Jake told Emma. "It wasn't enough, though, was it?" Emma's voice was flat. "They're going to say no. They're going to send us to another foster home, and you're going to disappear like everyone else, and Tyler and I will get separated again, and—" "Emma, breathe." "I can't breathe. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep hoping things will get better and then having them get worse." Emma's voice rose to a shout.
Why did you make me believe you? Why did you make me think this could actually work? Before Jake could answer, the bailiff appeared. "Judge is ready." They filed back into the courtroom. Judge Landry sat behind her desk with an expression that revealed nothing. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented," she said, "and I've considered the testimony from both sides. This is not an easy decision. Mr. Ashworth's concerns about Mr. Morrison's background are valid. The Hells Angels' reputation is what it is, and I cannot simply ignore decades of documented criminal activity by members of that organization." Jake felt Emma's hand slip into his. "However," Judge Landry continued, "I am also compelled by the testimony of Emma Carter herself. This child has experienced significant trauma. She has been failed repeatedly by systems designed to protect her. And she has identified Mr. Morrison as someone who provides her with a sense of safety and stability." As a judge, I cannot dismiss that lightly. Judge Landry looked directly at Jake. "Mr. Morrison, I'm granting you provisional foster placement for Emma and Tyler Carter with the following conditions. You will undergo monthly home inspections for the first 6 months. You will complete all required parenting training. You will attend family counseling with both children, and your daughter Sarah will serve as a co-guardian, providing additional support and oversight. Any violation of these conditions will result in immediate removal of the children. Do you accept these terms?" Jake couldn't speak. Sarah jumped up. "We accept, Your Honor. We accept all of it." Emma made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Tyler started jumping up and down. Catherine Mills was crying openly. The Hells Angels members erupted in cheers so loud the bailiff had to call for order 3 times. Richard Ashworth stood up. "Your Honor, I must protest. This decision sets a dangerous precedent. Your protest is noted and overruled," Judge Landry said firmly. "Mr. Ashworth, your concerns come from a place of past pain. I understand that. But punishing Mr. Morrison for crimes he didn't commit would be as unjust as the assault your son suffered. These children need a family. Mr. Morrison has demonstrated his commitment. That's my ruling." She banged her gavel. "This hearing is adjourned." Emma turned to Jake with tears streaming down her face. "We can stay with you? Really stay?" "Really stay," Jake said. And then Emma was hugging him, and Tyler was hugging them both, and Sarah was there too. All of them holding each other while the courtroom dissolved into chaos around them. Ashworth left without another word, his supporters trailing behind him. The news cameras got their footage, the big, bad biker and the 2 kids he'd saved. The human interest story that would run on every local station. But Jake wasn't thinking about any of that. He was thinking about a 9-year-old girl who'd given him her last $1.23 because she thought he needed coffee more than she did. And somehow, impossibly, that single act of kindness had led to this. To family. To second chances. To the possibility that broken people could still do right by each other.
Can we go home now? Tyler asked. To our real home?
Jake looked at Sarah, who smiled through her tears.
Yeah, buddy. Let's go home.
The 3-bedroom house Jake had leased sat at the end of a quiet street in a neighborhood that had seen better days but was trying to make a comeback. Emma stood on the porch with her single garbage bag of belongings and didn't move. You okay? Jake asked.
I've been to 4 houses in 8 months, Emma said quietly. Every time I unpack, I have to pack again. So maybe I'll just keep everything in the bag for a while. Just in case.
The words hit Jake like a fist. Emma, this is different. Everyone says that. Tyler had no such hesitation. He ran into the house yelling, I get the biggest room! Sarah followed him inside, already making mental notes about what furniture they'd need, what safety measures to install, how to turn this empty rental into something that felt like home. Jake stayed on the porch with Emma. You don't have to unpack today, or tomorrow, or next week. Keep everything in that bag as long as you need to. But Emma, I need you to hear me. This is your home now. Not temporary, not until something better comes along. Yours.
You can't promise that. Judge Landry said provisional placement. That means she can take us away if you mess up.
Then I won't mess up. Emma finally looked at him.
What if I mess up? What if I'm too much trouble? What if Tyler has one of his screaming fits and the neighbors complain? What if my grades don't get better fast enough? What if...
Emma. Jake knelt down to her level. There is nothing you could do that would make me send you away. Nothing. You understand? Everyone says that too. I know. But I'm going to keep saying it until you believe me. However long that takes. Emma's grip on the garbage bag tightened. Then, so quietly Jake almost missed it. Okay. I'll try to believe you. The first night was harder than Jake expected. Tyler refused to sleep in his own room, insisting he needed to stay with Emma. Emma insisted she was fine alone, but kept getting up to check on Tyler. By midnight, both kids were in sleeping bags on Jake's bedroom floor, neither willing to admit they were scared.
This is temporary, Emma said. Just until we get used to the house.
Sure, Jake agreed, knowing better than to push. Sarah showed up at 7 a.m. with breakfast supplies and a plan.
Okay, first thing, we establish routines. Kids need structure. School drop-off and pickup, meal times, bedtime, all of it consistent.
Sarah, they just got here. Maybe we ease into...
No. Trauma kids especially need consistency. It's the only way they feel safe.
Sarah was already in professional mode, the family therapist overriding the daughter. Emma, Tyler, come here. We're making a schedule. Tyler appeared from the hallway, still in his pajamas.
Do we have to go to school today?
Yes, Sarah said.
But what if the kids are mean? What if they know about Mr. Henderson and the police and everything?
Then we deal with it, Jake said. Together. Emma emerged from the bathroom looking pale.
I threw up.
Sarah's expression softened immediately.
Nerves? I don't know. Maybe. Everything feels weird. Like I'm waiting for something bad to happen.
That's normal, Sarah said gently.
Your body's been in survival mode for months. It doesn't know how to relax yet. But it will learn. I promise.
At school, things went wrong immediately. A group of 5th graders surrounded Emma at recess.
Is it true you live with a biker now? One of them asked.
My dad says bikers are criminals. He says your foster dad is probably going to jail.
Emma's jaw tightened.
Your dad doesn't know anything about Mr. Jake. My dad says the hellsangels are a gang. Are you in a gang now? Leave me alone.
Gang girl! Gang girl! The chant started quiet but grew louder. Other kids joined in, not even knowing what they were chanting about, just following the crowd. Emma ran to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall. She texted Jake.
I want to come home.
Jake called the school immediately. My daughter is having a crisis. I need to speak with the principal now.
Mr. Morrison, we can't just pull students out of class because
either you get Emma Rose Carter to the office in the next 5 minutes, or I'm coming there myself. Your choice. Emma was in the office when Jake arrived.
Her eyes were red from crying, but her expression was hard, protective walls rebuilding themselves brick by brick.
What happened? Jake asked.
Nothing, I'm fine. I just want to go back to class.
The principal, a thin woman named Dr. Reynolds, intervened.
Mr. Morrison, several students were teasing Emma about her living situation. We've addressed it with the children involved, but I think Emma might benefit from talking to our school counselor about coping strategies.
Coping strategies for being bullied? Jake's voice was ice. How about you implement a zero-tolerance policy for kids harassing a 9-year-old who's been through hell?
Mr. Morrison, I understand you're upset, but
no, you don't understand. You don't understand what it's like to lose your parents and get bounced between homes and finally find somewhere safe, only to have other kids call you gang girl because the adult in your life wears a leather jacket. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to make it very clear to every student and parent in this school that Emma Carter is under my protection. And if one more kid says one more cruel thing to her, I will be having conversations with their parents that they won't enjoy. Are we clear?
Dr. Reynolds stiffened.
Mr. Morrison, threats are not
threats. Promises. There's a difference. Emma grabbed Jake's hand.
Can we just go home, please?
They left. In the truck, Emma finally broke down completely.
I can't do this. I can't go back there. Everyone knows about Mr. Henderson and the court case and everything. They look at me like I'm broken.
You're not broken.
Then why does everything feel broken?
Emma sobbed.
Why can't I just be normal? Why can't I have a regular family and a regular life and not be the girl whose parents died and who lived with a criminal and who got rescued by a biker?
Jake pulled over. He didn't try to hug her, didn't try to fix it with empty platitudes.
He just sat with her while she cried, letting her grief pour out in waves that had been building for months. When she finally quieted, he said, "You're right. Your life isn't normal. And it's not fair. 9-year-olds shouldn't have to deal with any of this. But Emma, here's what I know. You're stronger than any of those kids who were teasing you. You've survived things they can't even imagine. And that strength, it's not weakness. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's proof that you're extraordinary."
I don't want to be extraordinary. I want to be regular.
I know. But regular isn't an option anymore. So we figure out how to be extraordinary together. That night, Tyler had his first major meltdown. It started over something small. Jake asked him to pick up his toys before dinner. Tyler's face crumpled. Then he started screaming. Not crying, screaming. Like something was tearing him apart from the inside.
I don't want to! I don't want to! You can't make me!
Jake froze. This wasn't ordinary kid tantrum. This was something deeper, darker. Trauma expressing itself the only way a 6-year-old knew how. Sarah appeared from the kitchen.
Don't yell back. Don't try to restrain him unless he's hurting himself. Just stay calm.
I am calm, Jake said, very much not calm. Tyler threw a toy truck across the room. It hit the wall hard enough to dent the drywall.
I hate you! I hate this house! I want my mommy!
Emma ran to her room and slammed the door. Jake knelt down, keeping his distance from Tyler, but staying present.
Tyler, I know you're angry. I know you're scared. I know this is all too much. And it's okay to feel that way.
It's not okay! Nothing's okay! Mommy's dead and Daddy's dead and Emmy went away and Mr. Henderson was mean and now you're here and I don't even know you!
Tyler's screams dissolved into sobs.
I want my mommy! I just want my mommy!
Jake's throat closed up. I know, buddy. I know.
Tyler collapsed on the floor, crying so hard he started hyperventilating. Jake moved closer, slowly, telegraphing his movements. When Tyler didn't pull away, Jake gathered him into his arms and held him while he cried himself into exhaustion. Sarah found Emma in her room, sitting on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest.
I can't do this, Emma whispered. I can't take care of Tyler and go to school, and deal with the bullying and pretend everything's okay. I'm 9 years old. I'm not supposed to have to do all this. You're right. You're not.
Sarah sat down next to her.
That's why we're here. You don't have to take care of Tyler anymore. That's Jake's job now. And mine. Your job is to be 9 years old. That's it. I don't remember how to be 9 years old. I feel like I'm 100. Then we'll figure it out together. One day at a time.
The first month was brutal. Emma's nightmares started 3 days in. Vivid dreams about the car crash that had killed her parents. She'd wake up screaming, convinced she was still in the back seat, still hearing her mother's last words. Jake would sit with her until dawn, both of them exhausted, neither willing to talk about what she'd seen. Tyler's behavioral issues escalated. He bit another kid at school, broke a window throwing a tantrum, refused to eat for 2 days straight because the food wasn't what Mommy made. The school counselor recommended medication. Sarah pushed for more therapy instead. Jake felt like he was drowning.
I don't know what I'm doing,
he admitted to Hawk one night at the clubhouse.
I thought I could handle this. I thought showing up and caring would be enough. But Emma won't talk to me about her nightmares. Tyler's getting worse instead of better, and I have no idea how to help them.
You get help, Hawk said simply. From Sarah, from professionals, from us. Nobody does this alone, Chains. Not even you. The monthly home inspection happened 2 weeks later. Seth Mills arrived with a clipboard and a neutral expression. She walked through every room, checked the smoke detectors, looked in the refrigerator, reviewed the school attendance records.
Emma's grades have improved, she noted. From D's to C's and B's. That's good progress.
She's working hard, Jake said.
Tyler's behavioral reports are concerning. 3 incidents in 2 weeks.
We're working with a therapist. Sarah's coordinating with the school. It's getting better. Catherine made notes.
The house is clean, well maintained. You've set up appropriate sleeping arrangements. Food supply is adequate. On paper, everything looks good.
But
Emma looks exhausted. Tyler seems anxious. And you look like you haven't slept in a month.
Catherine set down her clipboard.
Mr. Morrison, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for stability and genuine care. You're providing that. But I need to know you're also taking care of yourself.
Burned-out foster parents can't help traumatized kids.
I'm fine.
You're not, and that's okay. Nobody would be fine in your situation. But you need support systems. Are you using them? Jake thought about the Hells Angels members who'd started showing up unannounced with groceries, offering to watch the kids, teaching Tyler how to ride a bicycle. About Sarah, who came over every evening to help with homework and bedtime routines. About the veterans from the VA hospital who'd sent cards and care packages.
Yeah, he said. I'm using them. Good. Keep doing that.
Catherine picked up her clipboard. I'm approving this month's inspection. But, Mr. Morrison, the 6-month review is going to be more intensive. There will be psychological evaluations of the children, interviews with teachers, a full assessment of the home environment. The judge will make a final determination about permanent placement. You need to be prepared for that.
After Catherine left, Jake found Emma in her room doing homework. How much of that did you hear?
All of it. I was listening at the door.
Emma didn't look up from her math worksheet.
She's going to take us away, isn't she? In 6 months, when they do the big evaluation, they'll decide you're not good enough and we'll get sent somewhere else.
That's not going to happen.
You don't know that. You can't promise that.
Emma's pencil snapped from the pressure she was applying.
I'm so tired of people promising things they can't control.
Jake sat down on the floor next to her desk. You're right. I can't control what the judge decides. But Emma, I can control how hard I fight. And I can promise you that no matter what happens at that evaluation, I'm not giving up. Even if they say no, I'll appeal. I'll hire lawyers. I'll do whatever it takes. Because you and Tyler aren't a foster placement to me anymore. You're my kids. And I don't give up on my kids. Emma finally looked at him.
What about Sarah? She was your kid and you gave up on her.
The words hit like a knife. You're right, I did. And I've spent 5 years regretting it. But Emma, that's exactly why I know I won't give up on you. Because I already know what it costs to walk away from your children. And I'm not paying that price again. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then,
Sarah told me you used to miss her birthday every year. That you chose the club over her graduation. That you were drunk at her mother's funeral.
All true.
So why should I believe you're different now?
Because you already know I'm different. You've seen it. I show up every morning to take you to school. I'm here every afternoon when you get home. I sit with you during your nightmares. I don't drink anymore, haven't touched alcohol since the day I met you. You want to know why I'm different? Because you and Tyler made me want to be different. Because second chances only matter if you actually change. And I'm changing, Emma. Every day. Emma's eyes filled with tears.
I want to believe you.
Then believe me. The text from Richard Ashworth came 3 weeks later. Unknown number, but the message was clear. Heard about Tyler's behavior problems at school. Interesting how the court trusted you with vulnerable children, and you're already failing them. Looking forward to the 6-month review. Jake showed it to Sarah. He's watching us, waiting for us to screw up so he can file another complaint.
Let him watch. We're doing everything right.
Are we? Tyler's still having meltdowns. Emma's nightmares are getting worse, not better. What if Ashworth's right? What if I'm not equipped for this? Sarah grabbed Jake's shoulders.
Listen to me. Tyler's meltdowns are him processing trauma in a safe environment. That's actually good. It means he feels secure enough to express his pain instead of bottling it up.
And Emma's nightmares? They started after she moved in with you because she finally feels safe enough to process what happened. Kids who are in survival mode don't have nightmares. They're too busy surviving. These problems? They're actually signs of progress. That doesn't make sense. Trauma doesn't make sense. But I've been doing this work for 10 years, Dad. Trust me. You're doing better than you think. The community meeting happened because Dr. Reynolds called it. Given the tension at school regarding Emma Carter's living situation, we'd like to host a forum where parents can ask questions and express concerns in a productive environment. Translation: let the angry parents yell at the biker so they'd stop complaining to the school board. Jake walked into the elementary school gymnasium to find 40 parents waiting, most of them looking hostile. Richard Ashworth sat in the front row with a satisfied smirk. Dr. Reynolds opened the floor. This is an opportunity for respectful dialogue about—
I'll go first, a woman in the third row interrupted. I want to know why the school thinks it's appropriate for our children to be exposed to gang culture. My daughter came home asking about the Hells Angels. She's 7 years old. She shouldn't know what that means.
Jake stood up. Ma'am, what does your daughter know about the Hells Angels?
That they're dangerous criminals who hurt people.
And where did she learn that? The woman faltered.
From other parents. From the news.
So your daughter is being exposed to prejudice and fear-mongering by adults, not by me. I've never talked to your daughter. I've never even met her. But she already knows to be afraid of me because that's what you taught her. Another parent stood.
That's not fair. We're concerned parents trying to protect our children.
From what? From Emma Carter? From Tyler? Those kids have been through more trauma than anyone in this room can imagine, and they're trying to heal. But instead of helping, you're making their lives harder by teaching your children to ostracize them. We're teaching our children to be careful around dangerous influences, Richard Ashworth said smoothly. Surely you can understand that, Mr. Morrison. After all, you yourself admitted in court that the Hells Angels have a complicated history. Yes, and I also said that I'm not every Hells Angel who's ever made a mistake, just like your children aren't responsible for every bad choice their parents have made. Or should we start judging them by your son's history, Mr. Ashworth? Ashworth's face went red. My son was a victim. Your son got into a bar fight with bikers from a completely different club in a completely different state. That's terrible, and I'm sorry it happened. But punishing me for it, punishing Emma and Tyler for it, doesn't change what happened to him. It just creates more victims. A man in the back stood up. Jake recognized him, Michael Torres, the father of one of Tyler's classmates. Mr. Morrison, my son Antonio plays with Tyler at recess. He says Tyler is nice but gets really upset sometimes. Is Tyler dangerous? Jake took a breath. Tyler is 6 years old and watching his parents die in a car crash. He has PTSD. Sometimes he gets overwhelmed and has meltdowns. His therapist says it's normal for trauma survivors. He's not dangerous. He's hurt. And he's trying to heal in an environment where other kids have started calling him Gang Boy because of who I am. Michael Torres nodded slowly. My son didn't say that, and I'll make sure he doesn't start. A woman next to him stood as well. My daughter is in Emma's class. She told me Emma helped her with math homework, even though Emma's struggling herself. That doesn't sound like a girl being corrupted by gang culture. That sounds like a good kid. One by one, parents started standing. Not all of them, but enough. A teacher spoke about Emma's improvement. A lunch monitor talked about Tyler's kindness to younger students. The school counselor described the progress both children had made. Richard Ashworth's smirk faded. I think we've heard enough, Dr. Reynolds said. Unless there are any other concerns? Ashworth stood. Yes. I'd like to formally request that the school board implement a policy prohibiting individuals with documented motorcycle gang affiliations from serving as primary caregivers for students in this district. The room went silent. That's not the school board's jurisdiction, Dr. Reynolds said carefully. Custody and foster placement are handled by the courts and social services. Then I'll take it to the courts. Again. Ashworth looked directly at Jake. 6-month review is in 8 weeks. Let's see if Judge Landry is still convinced this experiment is working when she sees the full picture. After the meeting, Jake sat in his truck trying to calm down enough to drive. Sarah knocked on the window. That could have gone worse, she said. He's going to fight us at the review. He's going to bring up every tantrum Tyler's had, every nightmare Emma's had,
every single thing that makes us look unstable.
Let him. We've got 8 weeks to document progress. 8 weeks to show the judge that these kids are thriving despite Ashworth's interference.
What if it's not enough? Sarah's expression hardened.
Then we appeal. And if that doesn't work, we appeal again. And we keep fighting until they physically drag me out of the courtroom. Dad, I spent my whole childhood watching you give up when things got hard. I'm not letting you do that now. Not for Emma and Tyler. And honestly, not for yourself either. You deserve to win this fight.
Jake looked at his daughter. This woman who'd had every reason to refuse to help him, who'd shown up anyway because she believed in second chances, even when they seemed impossible. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything."
Don't thank me yet. We still have 8 weeks of hell ahead of us. Ashworth's going to pull out every stop. We need to be ready.
They weren't ready for what came next. The letter arrived 6 weeks before the review. Official letterhead from Henderson's attorney. Gerald Henderson had been released on bail pending trial, and he was filing a lawsuit against Jake Morrison for assault, false imprisonment, and defamation.
This is retaliation, Rebecca Torres said when Jake called her. Pure and simple. Henderson knows he's going to lose the criminal case, so he's trying to make your life hell in civil court. It's a common tactic.
Can he win?
Not on the merits. You were protecting a child from a kidnapping. Any jury would side with you.
But here's the problem. The lawsuit gives Ashworth ammunition for the custody review. He can argue that you're involved in active litigation, that you're a liability, that the children would be better off in a more stable environment.
So what do I do?
You fight both battles simultaneously, and you don't let Henderson see you sweat. Emma found the court summons on the kitchen counter. Jake hadn't been fast enough to hide it.
Mr. Henderson is suing you,
she said.
Because of us. Because you helped us.
Emma.
This is my fault. If I hadn't given you that stupid $1, if I hadn't asked you to help, you wouldn't be dealing with any of this. You'd be in Seattle with your daughter, and your life wouldn't be ruined, and—
Stop. Jake knelt down to her level. Listen to me very carefully. You giving me that $1 was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not the worst. The best. Before I met you, I was a lonely, middle-aged man on a motorcycle trying to fix a relationship that was already broken. Now I'm a father. A real father. To you and Tyler, and maybe, finally, to Sarah, too. That's not ruin, Emma. That's redemption.
But Mr. Henderson
is a coward trying to punish me for stopping him, and he's going to fail. Because we're not fighting alone anymore. We've got Sarah, the club, the community, people who actually care about what's right. Henderson has money and lawyers and nothing else.
What if the judge decides we're too much trouble? What if she says you should be with people who don't come with lawsuits and court cases and problems?
Jake pulled Emma into a hug. Then that judge doesn't understand the first thing about family. Because family isn't about convenience. It's about showing up when things are hard. It's about fighting battles you didn't ask for because the people you love need you to fight them. And Emma, I love you and Tyler, so I'm going to fight every battle that comes. Every single one. Emma held on tight.
I love you too, Mr. Jake. Is it okay if I call you that? Love you?
Jake felt tears sting his eyes. It's more than okay. It's everything. That night, Tyler had the worst nightmare yet. He woke up screaming about fire and blood and his mother's voice calling for him. Jake held him while he shook, while he cried, while he finally exhausted himself back to sleep. Emma appeared in the doorway.
Is he okay?
He will be.
Mr. Jake, I'm scared about the review. I know you said we'll fight, but what if fighting isn't enough? What if they decide you're not enough?
Jake looked at this 9-year-old girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast, who carried burdens no child should carry, who still somehow found the courage to hope. Then we'll prove them wrong, he said. Together. The 6-month review was scheduled for October 17th. 8 weeks away. 8 weeks to show that a broken biker and 2 traumatized kids could become a family. 8 weeks to win the fight of their lives. The 8 weeks before the review passed in a blur of therapy appointments, school conferences, legal meetings, and small victories that Jake learned to celebrate like they were major triumphs. Tyler went 3 whole days without a meltdown. Emma got an A on her science project. Small things that meant everything. But the progress wasn't linear. 4 weeks before the review, Emma came home with a black eye. "What happened?" Jake's voice was dangerously calm.
Nothing. I fell.
"Emma." She dropped her backpack.
Madison Ashworth said her dad was going to make sure we got taken away from you. Said you were a criminal and we were stupid for trusting you. I told her to shut up. She pushed me. I pushed back. Then her friends jumped in and...
Emma's voice cracked.
I just wanted her to stop talking.
Jake felt rage flood his system. Madison Ashworth. As in Richard Ashworth's daughter?
I'm suspended for 3 days. The principal said I started it, but I didn't, Mr. Jake. I swear I didn't.
I believe you. Jake was already pulling out his phone. Sarah, I need you at the house now. We have a situation. The meeting with Dr. Reynolds the next morning was tense. Madison Ashworth sat with her father, who wore his concern like a costume. Emma sat between Jake and Sarah, her eyes swollen shut despite the ice pack they'd applied all night. "Mr. Morrison, I'm disappointed," Dr. Reynolds said. "Emma has made such good progress. This setback—" "Setback?" Sarah interrupted. "My niece was defending herself against bullying that has been ongoing for months. Where was the school when Madison and her friends were harassing Emma, when they were calling her gang girl and telling her she didn't belong here?" "We've addressed those incidents. You gave them warnings. You told them to be nice. You did nothing with actual consequences." Sarah's professional calm was cracking. "And now Emma defends herself and she's the one getting suspended? How is that fair?" Richard Ashworth spoke up. "My daughter has bruises on both arms from where Emma grabbed her. I have photos. I have witness statements from 3 other children. Your niece is displaying violent tendencies, which I believe supports my concern that Mr. Morrison's influence is damaging these children rather than helping them." "Your daughter started the physical altercation," Jake said. "After weeks of verbal harassment that your daughter led." "That's your niece's version. The other students tell a different story." "Because you coached them to." Jake stood up. "You've been building a case against me from day one, using your daughter, using other parents, manipulating everything to fit your narrative. But here's what you can't manipulate. Emma came home with a black eye, defending herself against your daughter's cruelty. That's on you, Ashworth. You taught your kid to be cruel, and now you're using it against us." "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Reynolds said sharply, "that's enough." "No, it's not nearly enough. My daughter has been bullied at this school for months because of your prejudice." Jake pointed at Ashworth. "And instead of protecting her, the school punished her for finally fighting back. So here's what's going to happen. Emma is not going to be suspended. Madison is. And if you have a problem with that, Dr. Reynolds, then I'll be having conversations with the school board about how you're allowing the child of a wealthy donor to terrorize vulnerable foster kids." Dr. Reynolds looked at Richard Ashworth, then at Emma's swollen eye, then back at her paperwork. "I'll review the witness statements again."
Perhaps I was hasty in my initial assessment.
You do that. Jake turned to leave, then stopped. And Mr. Ashworth, keep your daughter away from mine, because the next person she bullies might not be as restrained as Emma. In the truck, Emma was crying.
I made everything worse. Now Mr. Ashworth has more evidence that you can't control me, that I'm violent, that—
You're not violent. You're brave. There's a difference. Jake looked at her in the rearview mirror. Emma, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I wish you hadn't gotten hurt doing it, but I'm proud.
Even though it might make us lose the review?
Even then. The letter from Dr. Reynolds came 2 days later. After reviewing security footage she'd conveniently forgotten to mention during the meeting, Madison Ashworth had been suspended for 1 week. Emma's suspension was rescinded. The school was implementing a new anti-bullying protocol. Small victories. 3 weeks before the review, Henderson's lawyer made a settlement offer. Drop the assault charges, sign a non-disclosure agreement, accept $50,000, and promise never to speak publicly about the Henderson case.
He's trying to buy your silence,
Rebecca Torres said.
Probably knows he's going to lose the criminal trial and wants to control the narrative before that happens.
What happens if I refuse?
The lawsuit goes to trial. Could take months, maybe years. Meanwhile, it's public record that you're involved in litigation. Ashworth will use it against you.
Jake looked at the settlement offer. $50,000 could change everything. Pay off debts, secure better housing, create a college fund for Emma and Tyler. But it meant lying. Meant pretending Henderson wasn't a predator who'd hurt children. No deal, Jake said. Let it go to trial. Emma and Tyler need to see that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. Rebecca smiled.
I was hoping you'd say that.
2 weeks before the review, Tyler spoke his first full sentence about the car accident. They were eating dinner, spaghetti, Tyler's favorite, when he suddenly said,
Mommy told me to close my eyes before the truck hit, so I did. And when I opened them, she was gone. The table went silent. Emma's fork clattered to her plate. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Jake felt his heart shatter. Tyler, Jake said gently, thank you for telling us that. I never told anyone before, because I thought maybe if I kept it secret, I could pretend it didn't happen. But it did happen, and Mommy's still gone, and pretending doesn't bring her back. Emma reached across the table and took her brother's hand. No, it doesn't. But we have each other, and we have Mr. Jake and Sarah. That's not the same as Mommy and Daddy, but it's something. Tyler nodded. Yeah, it's something. That night, for the first time since moving in, both kids slept in their own rooms. All night. No nightmares, no midnight migrations to Jake's floor. Just sleep. Progress. 1 week before the review, the Hells Angels Montana chapter held a fundraiser. For the Morrison Family Legal Fund, Hawk announced, though everyone knew it was really for Emma and Tyler's future. They raised $34,000 in one night. Bikers, veterans, community members, even some parents from Emma's school who'd changed their minds about Jake. Richard Ashworth sent a letter to Judge Landry calling the fundraiser evidence of the Morrison children being used as props for a motorcycle gang's PR campaign. Jake crumpled the letter and threw it away. Then he took Emma and Tyler to the park and taught them how to ride the bicycles the club had bought them. Normal family things. Building normal family memories. The night before the review, Jake couldn't sleep. He found Emma sitting on the porch at 2 a.m., wrapped in a blanket. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. I keep thinking about tomorrow. What if Judge Landry says no? What if she decides we'd be better off somewhere else? Then we appeal.
And if we lose the appeal?
Jake sat down next to her. Emma, you gave me $1.23 6 months ago because you thought I needed coffee more than you did. You know what I've learned since then? That kindness like that doesn't just change one moment. It changes everything. It changed me. It changed Sarah. It changed the club. It changed an entire community's mind about what family can look like. So even if Judge Landry says no tomorrow, even if we lose every appeal, you and Tyler have already won. Because you proved that love isn't about biology or paperwork or what some judge decides. It's about showing up. And we've shown up for each other. That matters more than any ruling. Emma leaned against his shoulder. I'm still scared. Me too. But we're scared together. That's what family does. The courthouse was packed again. News cameras, protesters both for and against, community members who'd become invested in the outcome. Catherine Mills sat in the front row with a thick file. Richard Ashworth sat across the aisle with an even thicker one. Judge Landry called the hearing to order at 9 a.m. sharp. This is the 6-month review for the provisional foster placement of Emma Rose Carter and Tyler James Carter with Jake Morrison. Ms. Mills, your report? Catherine stood. Your Honor, in the past 6 months I have conducted monthly inspections of the Morrison home. I have reviewed school records, therapy reports, medical files, and conducted extensive interviews with both children. My assessment is that Emma and Tyler have made remarkable progress. Emma's grades have improved from failing to honor roll. Tyler's behavioral incidents have decreased by 70%. Both children demonstrate secure attachment to Mr. Morrison and his daughter Sarah. My professional recommendation is that the placement be made permanent, with continued therapy and support services. Ashworth stood immediately. Your Honor, I have evidence that contradicts Ms. Mills's rosy assessment. Emma Carter was involved in a physical altercation at school 3 weeks ago. Tyler Carter continues to have emotional outbursts. Mr. Morrison is currently defendant in a civil lawsuit. The children are being used to promote a motorcycle gang's public image. This placement is unstable and potentially harmful. Your Honor, Rebecca Torres interjected. Mr. Ashworth's evidence is a collection of cherry-picked incidents taken out of context. The school altercation was Emma defending herself against his own daughter's bullying. Tyler's outbursts are trauma responses that have significantly decreased with proper therapy. The lawsuit is retaliatory and baseless. And the community support Mr. Morrison has received is because people who actually know him recognize that he's providing exactly what these children need. Judge Landry held up her hand. I've reviewed all submitted materials. I'd like to hear from the children themselves. Emma, would you approach the bench? Emma walked forward, her steps steady despite the trembling Jake could see in her hands. She wore the dress Sarah had bought for the first hearing, but she'd grown in 6 months. The dress was shorter now, tight across her shoulders. Physical evidence of how much had changed. Emma, Judge Landry said gently, I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you happy living with Mr. Morrison? Yes, Your Honor. Even with the challenges, the bullying at school, the inspections, the uncertainty? Emma's voice got stronger. Especially because of those things. Because Mr. Jake has been there through all of it. When kids were mean to me, he stood up to the principal. When I had nightmares, he sat with me until morning. When I got an A on my science project, he hung it on the refrigerator like it was the most important thing in the world. That's what family does. They show up. And he shows up every single day. What about your brother? Is Tyler happy? Tyler is healing. That's different than happy. But he's getting there. He laughs now. He plays.
He talks about Mommy and Daddy without crying every time. That wouldn't be happening if we were somewhere else. Judge Landry made notes. Tyler, can you come up here, please? Tyler approached slowly, clutching the stuffed bear he'd had since the emergency shelter. He was so small standing before the judge's bench, 6 years old, and carrying a lifetime of loss. Tyler, do you like living with Mr. Jake? Judge Landry asked.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me why? Tyler thought about it.
Because he lets me call him Daddy Jake if I want to. Because he makes pancakes on Saturdays.
Because when I have bad dreams, he doesn't get mad. He just holds me. Tyler's voice got quieter. My real daddy's in heaven, but Daddy Jake is here. And here is better than heaven when you're scared. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Judge Landry cleared her throat. Thank you both. You may sit down. She reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Ashworth, I appreciate your concerns. I understand they come from a place of past trauma. But what I see in this courtroom today are 2 children who have found stability, love, and healing with Mr. Morrison. Your objections are based largely on prejudice against his appearance and associations, not on evidence of actual harm. In fact, the evidence shows the opposite, that Mr. Morrison has provided exemplary care under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Ashworth's face went red. Your Honor, surely you're not going to. I'm not finished, Mr. Ashworth. Judge Landry's voice was steel. I'm also concerned by evidence that has come to light regarding your daughter's role in bullying Emma Carter, and by your apparent use of this custody case as a proxy for your own unresolved issues with motorcycle clubs. This court's priority is the welfare of the children, not validating your personal vendetta. She turned to Jake. Mr. Morrison, I'm granting permanent foster placement of Emma Rose Carter and Tyler James Carter. Furthermore, I'm authorizing immediate initiation of adoption proceedings if all parties consent. The children have been through enough uncertainty. It's time to give them permanency. The courtroom erupted. Emma and Tyler ran to Jake, both of them crying. Sarah was crying. The Hells Angels members were cheering so loud the bailiff gave up trying to restore order. Catherine Mills was smiling through tears. Richard Ashworth stood frozen, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. Then he turned and walked out without a word. Judge Landry banged her gavel. Mr. Morrison, don't make me regret this decision. Jake looked at Emma and Tyler, at Sarah, at the family they'd built from broken pieces. I won't, Your Honor. I promise. See that you don't. But Judge Landry was smiling. 3 months later, the adoption was finalized. Emma Rose Morrison and Tyler James Morrison, official and permanent. The courthouse ceremony was small, just Jake, the kids, Sarah, Hawk, and Catherine Mills as witness. How does it feel? Catherine asked Emma afterward. Like I can finally unpack my garbage bag, Emma said. Then she laughed. I threw it away last week. Don't need it anymore. The Hells Angels threw a celebration at the clubhouse that night. Tyler ran around showing everyone his new birth certificate with Morrison stamped across it. Emma hung back, watching the bikers who'd terrified a whole town show up to celebrate 2 kids nobody else had wanted. Jake found her near the back. You okay? I was just thinking about that first morning when I gave you my last $1. I was so scared you'd say no. So scared you'd just leave like everyone else always left. But I didn't. No, you didn't. Emma pulled something from her pocket, a crisp new $1 bill. I've been saving this. Wanted to give it to you tonight to say thank you for everything.
for showing up, for keeping your promises, for being my dad.
Jake felt tears sting his eyes.
Emma, you don't have to. I want to. Because $1.23 changed both our lives. This dollar won't change anything. We're already family. But I want you to have it anyway, as a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness become the biggest blessings.
Jake took the dollar and pulled Emma into a hug. Over her shoulder, he saw Tyler laughing with Hawk, completely at ease in a room full of bikers. He saw Sarah talking with Catherine Mills, already planning the family therapy sessions that would help them navigate the challenges ahead. He saw his brothers, his chosen family, celebrating not because they'd won a fight, but because 2 kids finally had a home. 6 months ago, Jake Morrison had been a broken man on a broken motorcycle, freezing in a Montana blizzard with nothing to his name. Then, a 9-year-old girl with ancient eyes and impossible courage had given him everything she had because she thought he needed it more. She'd been right. He had needed it. Not the money, the reminder that kindness still existed, that people could still see past fear to recognize need, that small acts of courage could spark revolutions of love. Jake tucked Emma's dollar into his wallet next to the original $1.23 he'd never spent. 2 bills that represented everything that mattered. The moment when a stranger became family, and the moment when family became forever.
I love you, Emma, Jake said.
I love you too, Dad.
Dad. Not Mr. Jake, not foster father. Dad.
Tyler came running over.
Dad!
Hawk says he's going to teach me to ride a motorcycle when I'm older. A real one. When you're much older, Jake clarified, shooting Hawk a look. Much, much older, Hawk agreed, grinning. Emma laughed, the sound bright and free and completely unburdened. She was 9 years old, and for the first time in a year, she looked like it. Not ancient, not broken, just a kid who knew she was loved. That night, after the celebration ended and they went home to the house that was finally, permanently theirs, Jake tucked both kids into bed. Tyler fell asleep immediately, exhausted from excitement. Emma held on a little longer.
Dad?
Yes, sweetheart?
Do you think Mommy and Daddy would be okay with this? With us having a new family?
Jake thought about the question carefully. I think your Mommy and Daddy loved you enough to want you to be happy and safe and loved. And you're all those things now. So, yeah, I think they'd be okay with it. More than okay.
I think so too.
Emma's eyes were already closing. Good night, Dad. Good night, Emma. Jake walked downstairs to find Sarah waiting in the kitchen. They'd come a long way too, father and daughter, rebuilding what had been broken through years of neglect. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard conversations they needed to have, old wounds that required healing. But they were trying. Together.
You did good, Dad, Sarah said quietly. Better than good. You saved them.
They saved me first.
Maybe you saved each other. That's how the best families work.
Jake looked around the small house. Worn furniture, scuffed floors, nothing fancy or impressive. But on the refrigerator hung Emma's science project next to Tyler's crayon drawings, next to family photos from the adoption ceremony. Evidence of life, of love, of people showing up for each other when it mattered most. His phone buzzed. A text from Hawk. Henderson pleaded guilty. 15 years, all 3 houses shut down. Cousin lost her job. Justice. Justice. Jake showed the message to Sarah. She smiled.
Good. Those other kids will get real homes now. Real families.
Because one 9-year-old girl decided to give a stranger her last dollar.
Because you decided to pay it forward.
Jake walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street, at the neighborhood slowly improving, at the future stretching ahead with all its challenges and possibilities. Somewhere in Seattle, a man he'd been trying to reach was probably still unreachable. Somewhere in Montana, a motorcycle club was living down decades of bad reputation, one good deed at a time. Somewhere in a small elementary school, kids were learning that family came in all forms, and judging people by their covers was the easiest mistake to make. And here, in this small house on this ordinary street, 2 kids who'd lost everything had found something new. Not a replacement for what they'd lost. Nothing could ever replace that. But something worth having anyway. Something worth fighting for. Something worth building from scratch with broken pieces and impossible hope, and the kind of love that showed up even when it was hard. Jake pulled out his wallet and looked at the $2 bills inside. $2.23. Everything Emma had given him, twice over. A reminder that the smallest gestures could change the world if you had the courage to follow through. He'd been a stranger, freezing in a truck stop, invisible to everyone except a child who'd learned to see past surfaces to the truth beneath. That child had given him everything she had without expecting anything in return. And in doing so, she'd given him something far more valuable than money. She'd given him a reason to be better than he'd been before. A reason to keep promises. A reason to show up. A reason to build a family when he'd thought that chance was gone forever. 6 months of hell had taught Jake Morrison that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about honoring it by building a better future. That broken people could heal each other if they were brave enough to try. That love wasn't something you found fully formed. It was something you built, piece by piece, promise by promise, day by day. Emma Rose Morrison had given him her last $1.23 on a freezing February morning because she thought he looked like he needed something warm. She'd been more right than she could possibly have known. He had needed warmth. The warmth of being seen as human instead of dangerous, of being trusted instead of feared, of being given a chance when everyone else had already decided who he was. And now, finally, Jake Morrison knew exactly who he was. Not just a Hell's Angel, not just a biker with a complicated past. He was a father, a dad, the man who showed up when he said he would, who kept promises, even when they were hard, who'd learned that family wasn't about blood or paperwork or what society expected. It was about choosing to love someone and then proving that choice every single day. The smallest act of kindness had changed everything, just like Emma said it would. And Jake Morrison would spend the rest of his life making sure that kindness echoed forward into a future worth building. One breakfast, one promise, one family at a time.